You're welcome back. So, around half an hour ago in Paris, Faith Kipyegon, who's Kenya's three-time Olympic champion, attempted to become the first woman to run a 4-minute mile. So, to go under 4 minutes, she needed to slash nearly 8 seconds off her current world record of 4:07.64. She'd help from Nike in terms of clothing and shoes, and she also had a dozen or so male pacemakers running the course with her. In the end, she clocked a time of 4:06.91. So that's just under a second quicker than her world record time and a bit away from the 4 minutes. Needless to say, that is not the new world record. That is not going to stand for any sort of world record ratification. Sonia O'Sullivan was keeping a close eye on this evening. Delighted to say she's with us now. Sonia, how are you keeping?
I'm good. It was a bit of entertainment to watch that there over dinner tonight.
Yeah, entertainment is definitely one way of describing it. Are you generally quite sceptical when Nike get a world-class athlete out there to try and break some sort of barrier? Or do you just kind of take it for what it is and kind of have a bit of intrigue about it?
Well, it was a difficult one because a lot of people had asked me what I thought, could she do it? Would she do it? And there was a few unknown factors in there, like how would having 11 male pacemakers help you to get dragged along? And I know from running with people, from cycling with people, that if you're in that pack and you're the meat in the sandwich, that you can get carried along for a long way. But I don't think it translates as well over to running as it does in cycling, because you actually physically have to do the running. And it was always going to be a big ask for her to do it. She'd have to improve over 2 seconds a lap to get under 4 minutes for the mile. She just about got a second off her time, which you kind of think for all of that to only get a second, that there is still a long way to go. But it was brave of her to get out there to try to do it. The whole show, I suppose you can call it, was built around her. And it attracted a lot of attention. So, I think a lot of people will be talking about this for a while.
Yeah, it raises like a really interesting conversation. And look, I'm sure Nike got a good bit out of it that they wanted to get out of it in terms of exposure. But it certainly felt for Kipchoge's marathon attempt, the sub-2, that just felt a lot closer, and it was kind of like a hair's breadth. And then obviously he comes back a couple of years later to Vienna and actually nails it the next time. If anything, this kind of just serves to show how far away we are from the 4-minute mile. I know it's something you've written about in the past, and I'm not sure you put a date on it, but it certainly wasn't anytime soon the year where you expected this to be possible for a female.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely gets people talking about it, and maybe people thinking they should try a little bit harder, and maybe some other women may be able to run a bit faster. But to actually get close to 4 minutes for the mile, it took men 21 years to go from 4:07 to under 4 minutes. So I know we have a lot of technology advances, and there's probably a new super track coming down the line that may help a little bit. But I definitely thought that Faith may have got a little bit closer than that tonight. I think I listened to her coach beforehand. They had a big preview show and everything, and it was a bit of a circus event, the whole thing. But I definitely, from listening to her coach talking, I wasn't confident after listening to him that things were going super well. That he was he didn't sound very confident.
Okay, so we didn't actually get the best version of Kipyegon tonight.
I don't think so. I think we've seen her better before. And I think in her best possible shape, she would probably go faster than 4:05. We didn't get that tonight. And, it's very early season. She's only run one race this year. And it often takes a few races to really get going and to get in that groove of running fast. And, to get out there and to be attacking 60-second laps from the start. I think she went through, 800 meters or halfway in it, just around 2 minutes. And she probably needed to be a bit under that. I think she had to bank a little bit because she definitely wasn't able to close fast. And you would expect men to do that, but women generally don't close faster. If they don't, they might go even, but they won't close faster.
Okay, I see. In the build-up to this, and it's something that I've seen him say before, but Seb Coe pointed out that fewer people have run a 4-minute mile that have actually reached the summit of Everest. And he puts that down to about 2,100 men, according to Track and Field magazine. What is the female version of that, Sonia? I've often wondered. What is the female time in that sort of racing where you only have around 2,000 people who've actually achieved it in the world.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I was thinking about that this evening because I think for a long time the 4 minute breaking 4 minutes for 1500 was a benchmark for women, but that's changed a lot in recent years. With the introduction of these new carbon plated spikes, so that gives most athletes about a second a lap advantage. So if you add a second a lap onto athletes' times, then it kind of relates more to athletes who've gone in the past, before carbon and after carbon. So yeah, I'm not sure really what the women's mark would be for that. I'll have to go and look it up. I didn't think about that now today, but because the mile has never been that round number for women. For men, it was 4 laps, less than 60 seconds per lap, and you get under 4 minutes. A lot of men over 2,000 have now done that, so it's not really that big of a deal for men, apart from young high schoolers, to break 4 minutes for the mile.
It's almost expected.
I think you have to be able to do that to be world class. I mean, the equivalent of the 1500 is something like 3:43, and that's what somebody asked me last night. They were like, "Well, do you think she can run 3:43 for 1500?" And she has run 3:49, and I thought, well, 3:43, that seems a lot harder than breaking 4 minutes in many ways.
Okay, that's interesting because I had seen that. So she's at 3:49. So you'd give her a better chance of breaking the 4 minute mile than getting that down to 3:43. It's really good to have that metric though, because even like it allows us to appreciate, say, Ciara McGeehan over the last few years and getting sub 4 minutes on a 1500, and that to be the expectation of 1500 runners in the female game. What's interesting is the progression of the mile and the record and how it's gone. Like when Hassan broke the record in July 2019, she lowered it to 4:12:33, but that record had stood since 1996. And then it was Kipyegon herself in 2023 who brought it down from 4:12:33 to 4:07:64. Now, if you could appreciate my blunt instrument approach to analysing this, is it reasonable to expect that somebody could get close to 4 minutes and 3 seconds by 2027? Or is that outrageous?
I mean, it's hard to know because the thing with the mile is that they don't run it very often.
True.
So it depends on, who's around, who's thinking about it, who's doing it. Like the men's mile, for example, the world record is Hisham El Garouj 3:43 from 1999. Every now and then people have an attempt at it, but they definitely don't run it as often as they used to. So they don't have as many goes at it. So 4:03, I mean, I think let's go for 4:05 first.
Yeah.
In a real race. And I think that's the thing, is to get it into a real race, to get more women running under 4:10 would probably help a little bit. I mean, Faith, she's out on her own running 4:06 now, 4:07 in a real race. So, at the end of the day, it's always going to be done in a race against women, because, it's just not fair to say, oh yeah, but you can have male pacemakers, but then who paces men? Do we bring in motorbikes?
Yeah. Are we seeing, maybe in this generation, you've mentioned obviously Kipyegon's completely out on her own at the moment, but the fact that Hassan did break it in 2019, that there potentially is an evolutionary moment here where the ceiling on female capabilities might be possible? Or are we just looking at the careers of two all-time greats and you can't really look at any trends beyond them?
Well, you can definitely look at the trends. Like there's a lot more people breaking 4 minutes for 1500 now than there ever was before. Every race is under 4 minutes to be won. Oftentimes there's 10, 11, 12 women running under 4 minutes. There was a year when I was running and I was the only athlete to run under 4 minutes. So the thinking has definitely changed. The technology has changed and the ability has changed of athletes. They train to be able to run under 4 minutes regularly now, and it's expected, whereas before it was always a big deal if you ran under 4 minutes for 1500. So I think that's the revolutionary moment, is that it's expected to run under 4 minutes, and if you're not in that bracket yet, then you're not world class.
I'm sure there are many scientists out there who are trying to actually figure this out, of like, when the limitations might actually happen on certain events. If you look at the men's version of this, and like the mile record, granted it's not run as much as it used to, the record still stands from 1999. So that potentially suggests that there's a ceiling there that's been reached in the men's game. And I wonder how close we are to that in
Well,
women's athletics.
I don't think there's a ceiling, but I think they just haven't attacked it as much as they do the 1500. And so I think maybe this year people will think, okay, hang on, maybe let's revisit the mile and maybe we should pay more attention to this. But the problem is the championship races, the world championships, the Olympic games are all 1500 meters. So many athletes want 1500 meters because they need the times and they need the points to qualify for these events. So the mile just gets thrown in a lot of traditional historical races where they've been run for years and years, but there's fewer and fewer of those now.
Can I ask, what was your white whale during your career? Was there a time, was there a benchmark that you were constantly after?
There was a few. You mean for the mile?
The mile or any of your other disciplines?
Well, the mile, I mean, it was a bit of a weird one because I ran 4:17, and at the time I was very close to running the world record. I think the pacemakers, stuffed up a little bit. I'm sure I was definitely ready for it that night in Oslo. We didn't have pace lights back then or, super shoes. So, I definitely could have ran faster, but still probably not under 4:10. So I think you're limited by the benchmarks that people are achieving in the era that you're running in. And so right now we see Sarah Healy is running regularly under 4 minutes, 3:57. She's closing in on Ciara McGeehan's Irish record. But I would always add 4 seconds onto any of those times because it's a second a lap. And then all of a sudden it becomes a normal time in my mind. And it's something I understand. So I don't think the athletes are getting any better physically, but I think they're being helped a lot in the technology that they're using and the recovery that they can get from training in a lot of the newer shoes that are available to them now.
Yeah, how do you feel about the new shoes? Is it straddling a worrying line, or is it just the way the world has gone?
No, I think we have to go with it. I mean, you look at cyclists have been doing it for years. I'm up here in the Pyrenees at the moment, and I was given a loan of a bike this week, and it was, I don't know, I think it was valued at 18,000. I've never been on a bike that cost that as much as a car before. But it's funny because a lot of the other athletes who had ridden it, around town a bit, they were all worried and stressed about it, whereas I just hopped on it and I thought, oh yeah, this feels good. And I think shoes are going that way. They're helping athletes. So like the bikes help cyclists. But at the end of the day, the gravity in running is what holds people back. And so you always have to deal with that and the stress of the carrying your body weight, whereas you don't need to do that on a bike.
No, that's for sure. And also, I guess there's probably more technological advancements or dark alleys you can take if you're designing a bike as opposed to designing a pair of shoes?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I saw the shoes that Faith was wearing tonight. I was just not in person, but I saw them online, a close-up of them today, and it looked like they were double-plated. So I was kind of thinking, oh, maybe that's 2 seconds a lap then. Maybe she will get it. And, in some ways you want to see the improvement, you want to see the advances, but at the end of the day, the athlete has to go out there and run. And, I don't think she was at her best tonight.
Yeah, fair enough. And when you say double plated, what do you mean by that?
Well, the carbon plate in the shoe is the one that gives the advantage. It propels the athlete forward. If it's double plated, then it's kind of like got a double spring in it. So then it's nearly like the carbon plates that the Paralympic athletes wear. There was a lot of talk about that when Paralympic athletes wanted to come and run against Olympic athletes. They said, oh yeah, but they'll have a big advantage because they got the carbon extension on their leg. But it's different, because they need to get the momentum going when they start, whereas an athlete has that momentum straight away. But if you have a double carbon, then you got a double spring.
Yeah. Have you given these a try yourself, Sonia, at any stage, out of curiosity?
Not the spikes. That'd be too high risk for me. But I wear the shoes all the time, and it's not for speed, it's for comfort.
Yeah. That's fair enough. Just kind of on an overarching level, just the dealing with the idea of this world record at this point, like it does feel to a degree like quite an artificial approach from Nike to try and bring it down. And look, I'm sure there are plenty of people who are enthralled by this and are very interested in what the technology can do. Tonight, maybe the athlete herself wasn't at her best, and maybe it wasn't so much the technology falling flat. But I wonder, should we just have a bit more of an organic approach to it? Like, do we need to be, I guess, voicing our displeasure with Nike being front and centre here, and for them to be the ones who are, responsible for bringing down the times, as opposed to the natural prowess of an all-time great athlete?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes to make the big jumps, you have to do kind of things that are a bit outside the box. And it was a bit like when Kipchoge did the marathon. The first time he attempted it, he was 25 seconds off breaking 2 hours. So that's a second a mile. And you could see how he could achieve that. So the second time round, they made sure that he got it. I think fate was a little bit too far away tonight to have the realistic thinking that she could do it anytime soon. I think it's going to take a bit of time. It's going to take some extra stuff, and whether that's the tracks. I mean, I really thought they were going to have some special track tonight. It was just a regular Paris Diamond League track. So I think there's definitely room for improvements in the tracks. You see that indoors a lot of the time. There's definitely some benefits to running indoors and the tracks that they have in there. But I think sometimes you have to do things artificially to believe that you can do it realistically. And it's a bit like when athletes do time trials and training with men, and they can achieve times that are pretty close to what they would do in a race. And then they believe more when they go into a race that they can actually do it. And they go out there with less risk, that they're not afraid to go out there and really go after the past times and put themselves on the line.
Right, very interesting. Are we chatting to you from an altitude training camp this evening, Sonia?
Yes, I'm in Fontremaux in France. I've never been here before, up in the Pyrenees. It's lovely. And I'm with a bunch of athletes from the Melbourne Track Club. And when you're in an environment like this, you can't help but get involved and train all day long yourself as well.
How's it going?
So good. I'm leaving tomorrow, so a week is enough for me.
I need to ask you about Sophie as well, just before I let you go. Unbelievable win there the week before last. And I think she summed it up herself after the NCAA win. Pretty effing happy was her line. And I think that was pretty evident from her reaction afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, you can be as prepared as you can be, but to actually go out there and do it, is the difficult thing. And I could see that she was in good form. She was definitely fit. She was ready. But you definitely have to go out there and back yourself and go for it. And, she definitely had me a bit nervous when she was in the lead early in the race. But I guess she knew what she was doing, and she was able to pull it off. So, it was great. I mean, she went back for her 5th year at the University of Washington, specifically to get a result, because she hadn't had a big result in her whole time out there. And she was able to win the Big Ten conference this year, and then also to come back and win the NCAA championships it was a great achievement. And to be able to end her college career on that was, very satisfying.
Is it always a nervous watching Sophie, or was it just how she approached that particular race?
It's always a bit nervous watching, because, you can only know so much or say so much. And, when athletes are out on the track, particularly if it's someone, close to you that you're invested in, you have to trust their instinct and what they're going to do, because at the end of the day, it does come down to instinct. There's only so much that a coach or a mother or, a supporter can do to help the athlete. When they're out there on their own, they have to make these split-second decisions, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Clearly worked on that occasion, everything that you put together for that. She joins pretty esteemed company, as you're well aware. Listen, Sonia, thanks so much for taking the time out of your final night in the Pyrenees to join us. We'll chat to you again soon.
No problem. Okay, talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Bye.
Take care.